So I started this social experiment, if you will, back in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. I decided to go through the contacts in my phone and I just started calling people. My intention was to just check in on people to see where they were at in life. So during that period of time, those personal stories continued on. I knew that people were going through it despite what their social media pages indicated. Our individual stories are full of failures and successes, sadness, joy, life and death. And I believe that we were created to be in community with one another. So sharing our stories can be a catalyst for hope, especially in a world that's full of evil and hate. I believe if we are intentional about sharing our personal stories, people will begin to understand us better, drawing us closer together rather than driving us further apart. Individual stories are being shared all around the globe today. What's your story? And what is my motivation for doing this? I'm just trying to be intentional. Hello, world. Welcome to Just Being Intentional. My name is Thomas Harris. Thank you for signing in on the show. We appreciate your checking in on us and seeing what we're all about. Truth be told, I tried to talk myself out of doing this thing. Like, who am I? I'm just another guy with another podcast. You got your shows you listen to already. Why would mine be any different? My hope is that this will be a little bit different. So my intention is to allow people to come on the show, share their stories, all different types of walks, backgrounds, ways of living, you name it, religions, whatever it is. We're all different, but we all have stories. So that's what keeps us. That's what we have in common. So this is an opportunity to allow people a chance to tell us who they are. Where did they come from? Where are they at today and where are they going? I want to re-emphasize that our stories, our personal testimonies are so powerful. Who knows how you can impact another human being by just sharing who you are and what your story is all about? Because God's given us all stories, so why not share them? They're free. You never know who you might positively impact telling people who you are and sharing your story. I just figured for this first episode, I would just be the first guinea pig and do a test run. So I'm going to share my own story with you guys. So I hope it helps people. I hope it encourages, and I hope that it impacts the world, hopefully. With all that being said, here we go. I was born in Los Angeles. My parents were kids. Mom was about 16. Dad was about 19, I think. They had me, they had my brother, and they split after that. I have no memory of them two being together, but I know they had two kids together. They never got married. I grew up pretty poor in the hood, but as a kid, I just looked around in my environment. I thought something's not right here. I thought that things should be different. And, it shouldn't take a child to see his environment and think that something's not right. But you can't choose where you're raised. That was it. So growing up and going to school and everything, I was very shy, reserved, introvert. I thought something was wrong with me. I'm sure other people thought something was wrong with me. I was basically a borderline mute, if you will. I just didn't talk to people. If they had something to say to me, I may respond, or I might just shrug my shoulders. And I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, very few as a young person. But my best friends were my brothers growing up, maybe a couple cousins. But I was kind of a loner, not by choice. I don't know, maybe I felt like I just didn't belong, struggling, going from group to group, just trying to fit in and just never feeling settled where I put myself. So it was, for me, I was a pretty sad child. You know how you could be in a room full of people that all say they love you and you don't know if you believe that? Like, you can be surrounded by those that love you, but not really feel the love. I didn't do well in school. I fell behind pretty early. Just because, getting lost in a large classroom and being too afraid to ask for help if you had a question. I was sitting in the back of the classroom and hoping that I was invisible, that no one would see me in the back of the classroom. If there was any time that I felt like a spotlight, like we have in front of me right now was remotely anywhere close to me, I would just shrink away. God forbid I had to come up and read a report to the class. That was the worst thing in the world for me. Going through school, early years, through junior high, I was kind of a loner. As soon as I graduated from junior high, Mom said, probably best that you and your brother move out to where your dad is living in the San Fernando Valley. We had a lot of gang activity where I grew up, and I was approached by gang members trying to recruit me, but I was the kid that would weigh pros and cons. What are the pluses? What are the minuses of getting in this situation? Now, I have brothers that are act first and think second, and I was always the kid that would think, process, think some more, and then by that time it's too late. The decision's already been made. Or, Thomas, what are you doing? And I would just say, I don't know. I had no response. So I had a lot of trouble making decisions because a lot of times I overanalyze and I overprocess things. Processing is not a bad thing. It's a very healthy thing, but you can't overanalyze and overprocess things where you don't make a decision. So moved out, my dad and my stepmom, who's my youngest brother's mom. Life was pretty good there. The living situation was a little bit better, but still, I went to this big high school where I didn't know anyone except for the neighbor across the street. That was the only person I knew at the school, but we weren't necessarily friends. So a lot of my days were walking around the campus by myself. Sometimes at lunchtime, I'm having lunch by myself, and it was like, here we are again, no friends, and just kind of a loner. Not by choice, it's just like I didn't really know any better. So I got my first job right before I started high school. It was cool to have my own money and, be able to buy some things that I wanted for myself. It was a real struggle for me, just having your brothers as your best friends and not really having friends besides those guys in your life. So I struggled a lot with relationships and the social scene, kind of being like a chameleon. Like I could go to this group, I could go to this group. Like you got the outcasts, you got those that by default, they were black kids that were bussed in from LA. So it was like by default, I'm hanging out with these guys. No one told me to go away, but I just never felt like any group I was in was my group. So that was a real struggle and where I battled my insecurities a lot. Eventually, when I graduated high school, I didn't even think I should have graduated high school, to be honest. I didn't do well. I think one teacher, just to be nice, passed me when I probably should have failed out. But I attended graduation. I got the cap and gown, and it was like, yeah, but do I deserve it? I don't think so. I graduated high school. Moved out. I said, I'm 18, peace out, I'm grown. One of my brothers and a couple buddies, we got this apartment. It's pretty much down the street from where I was living previously, but that's where things kind of took a turn. I never thought I'd be a guy that's a partier. We got into smoking weed and drinking and just partying, going to clubs and doing all that stuff that stupid teenagers do. I didn't feel like it was me, but I just felt like I got peer pressured into it. I was a follower and not a leader by any stretch. Next thing you know, you got these guys come over there and they're take. And then you get to the point where it's like, am I the only one that's working? Because people don't work, bills don't get paid. Your phone gets turned off because you're not paying a phone bill. Then next thing you know, your lights are turned off because you're not paying the light bill. And then it gets to the point where, you get those notices on the door, eviction notices. And I remember everyone wanting to hang out, and I felt like, why do I have to go to work when everyone else is just hanging out? So I remember going down to my job, and I had a pretty good job working at a grocery store. And I just remember going to my boss and I said, you know what? I don't think I want to work here anymore. And I just quit that day and I walked away so I can go back to smoking weed and just hanging out. And eventually we got kicked out of that place. And then someone else co-signed on another apartment and the same pattern started to happen. And we got kicked out of that place. And Then I got this job working at security at my old high school. Nothing special about the job. It's like show up late, sign in a book, don't show up, it's all good. No one's going to say anything. And around that time is when I started to really reflect on where my life was headed. And I was not happy with myself. I didn't like myself back then. Lack of purpose, no drive. And we had these military recruiters that were on the campus. So I would see them periodically. And when I saw one of these guys, whether they were Army or Navy or whatever, head in my direction, I would just turn around and walk away. Nice try, buddy, you're not getting me today. And I was pretty successful with that for a while. But then one day, I'm walking home from work, and this government car pulls up, and this guy says, "Hey, buddy, you need a ride?" And I stopped, and it just dawned on me that I was about to make a huge decision that day. So I knew I wasn't getting a ride home. I knew we were going somewhere else. So we ended up at the recruiter station. A Navy guy took me to his recruiting station, and next thing you know, I'm watching these videos, I'm looking at brochures, and I knew at that moment that I was going to join the military. And did I consult with any of my family or friends? No, I did not. And the reason why, most importantly, is because I needed to do this for myself, and I didn't want anyone to try to talk me out of it. It was time to take charge of my life. So that's what I did. I said yes to the opportunity, and then I went and told my brother, I told my friends. I think some people were not happy about my decision, but I said, you know what? It's not about you, it's about me. I believe that there is one defining moment in your life where you make a decision that will change the entire course of the rest of your life. And I believe that was the day that I did that. And I haven't looked back since because it was a necessary thing. So essentially, I was kind of like the guy that broke up the band. Sorry, guys. It wasn't my intention to break up the band. I was just trying to do what was best for me. It was like, I'm hoping that people can accept that I had to make the best decision possible for myself. When I look at what I consider my rock bottom, which was being kicked out of a couple apartments and being on the streets for a very short time, I was homeless. Because I had too much pride to go back home and deal with rules and regulations. So I decided to just kind of figure it out. So it was like, stay here one night, stay here another night, and just keep going until I got to the end of myself. Like, what am I doing? Like, there has to be better than this for me. So I humbled myself. I went back home for a little bit, and next thing you know, I was getting ready to be shipped off. So now we go to where I'm about to ship out, and my brother comes to me and says, "Let's go out, like one last time." And I said, "No, not interested. I'm 21, and I felt like I got all the partying out of my system. I was done. No distractions. I just want to move forward and not look back. Brother, I love you. I'm going to miss you." So he guilt tripped me into going out one last time. So we ended up going to a dance club, and I met a gal there at this club. Now, I'm not one to promote going to a club or a bar to look for your spouse, but at that time it was appropriate because I did meet a girl who eventually became my first official girlfriend. Yeah, I was 21 when I got my first girlfriend. So met this gal, we hit it off pretty well, and pretty soon I made a decision I was going to stay around a little bit longer for about 6 more months. And I did that. We hung out. I got to know her family. I got to see what I didn't have in my own life, which was tradition, intact family, where there was a mom and a dad and kids, and there were pictures of family. There were videos of family vacations and parties and all this stuff. And I was like, this is what I've been missing in my life. So it was attractive to me to see my in-laws, my future in-laws, how they raised their kids, their daughters, and there was family. There was beauty there. So I was attracted to that. So I stuck around. But eventually I ended up leaving and I went off to boot camp. And boot camp for me was a time that I really embraced this opportunity. I felt like God had given me another opportunity to start over. I was far away from home. I didn't know a single soul. I was isolated in an environment, and I just had to follow the script. You know, when I saw guys that were homesick and crying and complaining, I was just like, it's not that bad, guys. Like, I don't know, maybe my approach was different. Like I embraced this as a clean slate for me, that I could start my life over. So that's how I took it. I said, I get to just do what I'm supposed to do, and then I get to leave. Like, it's not that hard. But, you know, your mindset is the difference maker and what goes well for you in life. You got to change your mindset if you want positive things to happen. So that's what I did. My girlfriend at the time came out to my graduation, and I cried during my graduation. And the reason why I cried was because for the first time in my life at that point, I felt proud of myself. I felt like for the first time I saw something through to completion that, I don't know, when I graduated high school, it was like, yeah, so what? But when I graduated boot camp, I said, I did this. I decided to go through this process, and then I finished it, and I finished it well. So it was a very proud moment, and I had that uniform on. I was one of the few people in history that raised their hand and took this oath to serve and protect this country, and I was a nobody. To be honored and considered for that was special to me. So it was a very proud moment for me, and I'll never forget that. And I had my brother and my wife there, my future wife, and then my brother's then girlfriend. But it was special. So I went to the fleet after going through submarine school in Connecticut, and I was on submarines. Yes, I said that right. I was on submarines, and guess what? I chose submarine duty in the Navy. Why did I choose submarines? I have no idea. I had an opportunity to choose something. I think out of desperation, I was just like, let me pick something that's a little bit crazy. Not like Navy SEAL crazy, but a little bit crazy. And going to the Marines was completely out of the question. So I chose the Navy, and then I chose submarines. And they said, what do you want to do in the Navy? And I was like, I have no idea. So what I got to do was choose subs, and I went in and I got to look around and see what jobs that might interest me. And initially when I got there, I was working in the kitchen with the rest of the scrubs, the nubs, the nobodies, and I was busting suds in there. And I met a couple guys that were working in the sonar division, and they influenced me to come over and check it out. Now, to be a sonar tech, you had to go to a year-long school, which I bypassed because I was already on the boat, and I got to just kind of go in there and learn it. It was on-the-job training, and then I became a sonar technician, and it was the best decision I could have made. And being a new guy, you have to drive the ship, and I hated driving the ship because that's when the anxiety kicks in. I was like, I can't even see where I'm going, but I'm driving this big hunk of metal. That part sucked for me, but some people loved it. I'm just sharing a little bit of that experience in the Navy. Made some great friends, and still got some buddies that I keep in touch with. And we're so many years later, but I still keep in touch with some of those guys. So I go back home to LA, and my girlfriend invites me to this church. And when I go to this church, they're doing this play. It's called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. And this is a little play that might scare the hell out of you. And it did, for me, scare me. Different scenarios about what happens if you die and then you got to stand in front of the judge during judgment, and there's a book. If your name's not in that book, then you don't get to enter the pearly gates. And I said, sign me up. I don't want to go to hell. And I gave my life over to my Savior, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that night. But the other side that I didn't understand was that there is peace and there's freedom in that decision. So the baggage I came in with that night, it was released from me as I came forward and gave my life. I made a profession of faith that night, and I felt like all the worries and cares and fears that I had with me, that I carried for 21, 22 years, like it was taken away from me. And I felt the peace of God, and I felt a transformation, a change within me that I cannot explain to anyone that doesn't know what I mean. But I know it was real. I don't expect people to understand that. Some people will never understand that, but I speak truth in this, that it was an experience that I had, and I'll never forget it. And it was life-changing for me. So I became a believer. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had real purpose. Like I was supposed to do something special with my life. And that meant that I was going to go and tell some people. And these guys were in the military. They were sailors. I remember days, hey, who's going to church today? Crickets. Nobody? Okay, you, let's go. And they would get up and they follow me. So long before I even knew what I was talking about, I knew I had something special that I had to offer, and I would share it. I was like Paul Revere out there, just telling the whole world about this new thing that I experienced, in Christianity. But I was excited. So God used this woman. He put her in my path so that she can lead me to him. So I'm eternally grateful to her. I'm eternally grateful to my Creator for setting that up, as he is often, I call him the great orchestrator. She came out to Hawaii where I was stationed, and we got engaged, which was weird, first girlfriend. And then most of your time dating was long distance. So it was just a weird concept. But we got engaged in Hawaii, and then I went off on my deployment, Westpac, where I went to Japan, Hong Kong, Guam. We didn't see each other for 8 or 9 months. And that whole time I was listening to cassette tapes, because we didn't have high-tech stuff like we have now. It was cassette tapes. That was my pre-marriage counseling, was listening to tapes while she was actually speaking to someone in person, because I was underwater and doing my thing out there in the ocean. Even in that time, I was like going back and forth in my mind, like, is this the right thing? Am I the right guy? Is she the right girl? Just, how you question yourself, try to talk yourself out of something, is right. But 8 or 9 months went by, and she was back home planning this wedding with her mom and her sisters, and I was just doing my thing out there in the great blue sea. Got back, and it was time to get married. I had never even been to a wedding before that day. My very first wedding I attended was my own. So it was kind of weird, awkward, just standing around waiting while the ladies are getting ready. The guys are just kind of twiddling their thumbs. We're waiting for guests to arrive late, my family. Then it was this whole tribe of people that was her family. A lot of people in my little small group of guests that I had. But it was a wonderful thing. Marriage is a beautiful thing, one of the best things that I've done with my life. Even though there's work involved, anything that's worth it, you have to work at it. And marriage is one of those things, but it was meant to be. Marriage became on-the-job training, but when we started to have kids and everything, it was about giving our kids what I didn't have as a child, which was tradition. My kids have much better life than I had growing up because there's intention involved. Like, I want to give them things that I never had growing up. Discipling my kids, and we're going to church, and they're going to kids' church and then youth group eventually, and I was trying to be that example for them. How is my son supposed to know how to treat another woman and be respectful to her. So the way he sees me interacting with his mother and his sisters and other women in our family and friends, I want him to see that you don't raise your voice at another woman. You don't put your hands on her. You're not taking advantage of her. He needs to know these things. Like, it's unacceptable for a man to harm a woman. There's no place for that. No excuse. For my daughters, this is how a man is supposed to treat you. He's supposed to treat you gently. He's supposed to treat you with respect. He's not to put his hands on you. He's not to raise his voice and call you names. My kids, I can say safely today that they've never seen their dad act that way towards their mother or any other woman. I can confidently say that because I've always respected women. So living out purpose, for me, that meant I was going to be a guy that was relational. I felt early on, like when God called me, I was like, I don't know if I'm the guy. I stumble over my words. I'm slow of speech. I have some sort of speech impediment. But he told me it doesn't matter because I'm the one that chose you. You didn't choose me. So I take that to heart. I was meant to cultivate relationships with other people, which is kind of like what I'm doing right now, is cultivating relationships. I'm trying to encourage people and inspire people to share your story and to be a success story in this world and make an impact on the world. I became a Sunday school teacher with my wife, eventually became a youth pastor. Just love hanging out with kids and just being as godly example as I can be to them. Then I got involved in doing biblical counseling because I became fascinated with with human behavior and the brain and why we do stupid things. Why do we make poor decisions? And I learned a lot about myself in that process. And I want to continue to be a student of life and never stop learning until I breathe my last breath. I want to keep learning. And God has given me a purpose, and I want to glorify Him with whatever I do in life. I started to grow in my confidence, as I started to branch out more. One of those things was doing veteran outreach. I started doing veteran outreach. For a long time, I was kind of just in this limbo from the time I stopped in active duty to figuring out what else I'm going to do. I was working at Trader Joe's and did that for a long time, and I learned a lot about people. I had a lot of one-on-ones. I was providing free counsel to people because they had issues too, just like everybody else. And I ended up getting involved in veteran outreach, and veterans are different. Those experiences that we have in the military don't quite change over to being a civilian again. So there's a lot of struggles with that. I took it upon myself to be involved in trying to grab these veterans to try to help them figure out what else they're going to do with their lives. And it's a tall task. It's a lot of isolation and just depression and drugs and alcohol and the veteran suicide epidemic. It's hard stuff. But I found a group that found that military veterans and professional athletes have similar struggles during their transition from taking the uniform off to figuring out what else your identity is. So I've been a part of this group, Emerging Vets and Players, since 2016, and I've been actively involved in that, trying to get something going here in Middle Tennessee. So I've been putting in work to make something happen because I'm passionate about things that pertain to the veteran experience and athletes. That's part of my passion. I also got involved in working with addicts and alcoholics and a lot of mental health issues, which I currently do now at the homeless level. The Lord has put on my heart to be of service even after serving in the military. I want to continue to be of service to my environment, to my community, and that's what I try to be intentional about. 2020 was pretty crazy for a lot of us. If you're breathing, living, you know what I'm talking about. 2020 was wild. lot of people died during 2020. A lot of people's lives were wrecked. Home lives, depression, domestic issues, addictions, all that stuff. People's minds were whacked out. I remember a veteran buddy of mine took his own life, and basically watched a man on social media taking his life. And while everyone's scrambling around trying to figure out how to help this man, eventually he succumbed to his trauma and mental health issues and his addiction. It was tough. So this subject of suicide hits especially hard for me because 12 years ago, my own father took his life, and it's sorry, I didn't think that was going to happen. I talk about it often. It hits home. It's reality. I talk about it often because I believe the more you talk about things that are traumatic, the better you're going to heal from it. And I'm fine. Just every once in a while, you just go back 12 years. I was at work and my brother called me. I was busy and I didn't pick up. And then he called me right back and I said, maybe I should answer this. So I did. And he said, Dad's dead. I said, what? He said, he's dead, he's gone. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, he's gone. He was found in his apartment. He didn't show up for work the night or a couple nights before. And yeah, it was real. And we found out on my youngest brother's 19th birthday. You go through the emotional roller coaster. It's about why and what could I have done better? Coulda, woulda, shoulda. And you're mad, you're sad, you're angry, all these emotions. And you think about your kids and your niece and just your dad's kids, his boys, his 4 boys. And it's like, man, you cheated us. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Someone bails on you, they cheated you. Grandkids are growing up without their granddad. We had a falling out the last year of his life, so he never got to meet his first grandson. This topic of suicide really hits hard for me because it hits home. So when I think of 22 or so veterans that are taking their lives, I mean, they gave them themselves. They gave up their personal lives to be of service to this country. What they've experienced, going to war. Not all of us went to war, but a lot of my peers, I know they've been to war. They've been shot at. They've shot at other people. They've seen things blow up around them. They've held their dead comrades. Some of those were their best friends in their arms. How do you overcome that when you're in the thick of it and there's no switch to turn that off? The trauma of that, you can't just turn it off. It's there. And some of these guys and gals, like, the only way to stop the noise is just to end it all together. Even though I don't get it, I get it. And that's the same with athletes or celebrities. Like, anybody that's a human being can experience that, go through trauma and not know how to deal with it. So as an advocate for our veterans and for our athletes to keep being a voice and be a supporter of their struggles and try to help as best I can. So 2020 was a mess. So it kind of led to where we are now with my family, moving to Middle Tennessee, where for me it's the best, move ever. My wife loves it. My kids love it. They're thriving, making more friends here than they did back in California. So I have no regrets about coming here. Where I work now, feeling like I was not initially qualified, but the thing I understood was that it's not the fact that you're qualified or not, is it God who qualifies the unqualified, just like he did with those folks in the Bible, the characters in the Bible. They were all unqualified, but he decided whether or not they were going to be qualified, and that was the difference maker for me. You can't sell yourself short. You got to see the value in yourself before others see value in you. So I want to encourage you all with that. So what's on the horizon? Future goals and aspirations I have. This is one of the things, and 2020 was my motivation for doing this podcast. I didn't know it at the time. That was not the only reason why I'm doing this or why I did this so-called social experiment. I wanted to really let people know that I was thinking of them. So it doesn't take long to just pick up the phone, text somebody, give them a quick call, say, hey, you popped up in my mind today, and I wanted to just reach out and let you know I was thinking of you. I feel like I'm one of the most unlikely success stories. And what makes me successful? I mean, that depends on who you are, what your definition of success is. I'm an overcomer. I'm a survivor. I have a relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I have a loving wife of almost 27 years. I got 3 awesome kids who've never been in any real trouble. And we're continuing to build on this life that God has blessed us with. All the things I'm doing right now, if I sell some scripts that I've been working on, all these things I'm doing it all without a college degree. And I just know that you can't make this stuff up. So I'm going to keep it moving and do what I know I know to do. What do I need to be intentional about? And that's something I'm going to ask everyone that comes on the show. What do you need to be intentional about? What has been holding you back from doing what you know you need to do? I need to be more intentional about my relationship with my Creator, my God, my Lord, with my family, with my friends, being the best husband, being the best dad, being the best brother, being the best son, friend, all that. I need to be more intentional with that. Continue to be an example to my kids. Overcome procrastination. I've been a lifetime procrastinator, and I want to keep working on that and not take my relationships for granted, starting with my wife and my kids. There's a lot more details to my life, but I'm going to save that for a later date. In a nutshell, this is who I am. This is my life, and I just wanted to share with you guys, just to let you know the tears were real. I remember a time that I didn't cry. I didn't know how to cry. I just bottled everything up. My emotions were bottled up, and that's not good for anybody. And I'm comforted by the shortest verse in the Holy Bible, which is Jesus wept. So it gives me full liberty to just open the floodgates when it's necessary. So I'm not embarrassed by my tears. That's me being raw and real, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I'm not going to hold back on that. I hope you enjoyed listening to the show. I hope you keep listening. Got a lot of great guests coming up. But I thank you for taking the time to spend to listen to me ramble on. Whatever you got to do to keep following, like, subscribe, please do that. And we look forward to talking to you again. Thank you very much. God bless.